years ago, I believe it was, we saw it on digitaljournal.com, where an iReporter said that Steve Jobs suffered from a heart attack and died. Or just suffered from a heart attack, I'm not sure which one it was. And it was completely false, but a lot of people picked it up on Twitter and Facebook that, oh my God, Steve Jobs suffered a heart attack. And it turned out to be a big lie or a hoax. And they pulled it from iReport, but not before many people were linking to it, talking about it. And then, of course, subsequently saying, well, CNN's iReport can't be trusted. So I guess my question to those who are very close to user-generated content here, how can that content be trusted when these kind of instances do mar the reputation of crowdsourcing, of citizen journalism in general?
I think one of the concerns with, one of the things that, I mean, the Steve Jobs example got jumped on very quickly as the failure of citizen journalism, or citizen journalism is now dead and it's not acceptable. I think the problem there with the Steve Jobs example was that people just took it and ran with it without verification, and people just assumed it was true, and I'm not really sure why. I think one of the things that iReport went on to do after the Steve Jobs incident was to put lots of disclaimers on the front of their website, basically saying this is, you know, content that isn't sanctioned by CNN and all that sort of thing. So basically, you know, being very clear about where the content had come from. But also, I mean, in the broader question about how do you verify citizen journalism, you're actually asking the question, you know, should it be held to the same standards as professional journalism? And are we viewing citizen journalism through the professional lens, but actually should we view it in some different kind of way?
With the Steve Jobs example, if I might say, citizen journalism was getting its roots. We were seeing it in social media, we were seeing it in blogging, and I think a lot of the mainstream press and critics were looking for a reason to prove why citizen journalism doesn't work. And it's the same thing as picking apart a story in any mainstream organization, saying that New York Times reporter lied about something, therefore the Times should be written off.
Jason Blair?
Any example. There are many examples in both traditional media and in citizen journalism, and I think it's important to remember that every source should be questioned. As journalists, we're trained to say, where do those facts come from? Who says who? What's the other side of the story? And I think readers are being increasingly trained to do that as well. In the States, it's especially important as the news is becoming so much about politics, and when someone from the left side says something, someone from the right side will automatically rule it out just because it came from that source. And I think that you see that in citizen media, and certainly there are examples where writing is shoddy or you can't trust something, but when you teach people, and that's something we try to do with Digital Journal, when you teach people the fundamentals of news, all you need is passion. And if we look across the board, there are many shining examples of where citizen journalism works.
I have a question regarding an interesting kind of rule in the online world. It's called the 99-1 rule, where 90% of users are passers-by and just come by just for one article, who never contribute in any way, whether comments or user-generated content. 9% of users contribute a little bit here and there, and 1% of users account for most of the action, whether it's commenting, uploading video, uploading photos. They're really dedicated to your brand, to your media outlet. I've always been wondering what can be done to increase the number of contributors to your respective websites, and how can you make that 1% jump up even to 5%, to 10%, to make it so that more people are passionate rather than just passers-by who have no, I guess, inkling of an idea of how to contribute or what to contribute, because that can sometimes be the first obstacle.
I'll start off with this. I'm not sure if there's a magic formula to this, although if anyone out there knows of a magic formula, come talk to me afterwards. But I think there's a couple things that you could at least try to do to help facilitate increased contribution from the readership. Number one is make it as easy as possible to contribute, which means don't make them register or go through any hoops to sort of actually place a comment. And then the other thing is actually create the kind of stories that are going to inspire the content to inspire them to contribute. If it's something that they really feel passionate about, that you're writing about, something they have a strong opinion about, then at the end of the day, they're much more likely to feel the need to sort of jump in there and say something.
Go ahead.
Just going to add to that, I agree that breaking down barriers from a journalism aspect, though, if you're running a news outlet, the more you give into playing into what people want, the more risks you also run in editorial integrity. Michael Jackson news or celebrity news or sports news, whatever is the interest, can take over. People find passionate subjects and they may really want to contribute it. It doesn't necessarily make something stronger or make a news brand stronger or a site experience stronger. So breaking down barriers is good, but it's always, in my opinion, important to think about offering what you're offering and what type of contribution.
I guess I would also question whether someone participating on your site, leaving a comment on a story, whether that's really the best measure of engagement, because obviously that's the one that matters to you as the person owning the site, and that's the one you can monetize. But if someone then takes what you've written, writes a whole separate blog post somewhere else, or even Twitters about it somewhere else, that could be a much deeper engagement than what they're actually doing on your own site.
I think that's a very valid point. Sorry to jump in, but also, what's the point of the news site? I mean, clearly engagement is something that we're all concerned with these days, but also the fact that a news site is usable and delivers information in an efficient way is actually another way of engaging people, because if they, in some respects, if they don't stick around that long, you've done your job because they've found what they wanted and got it and gone on. So I think definitely, engagement is something that we should be very concerned about, but I don't think we need to be solely concerned about that either.
I think there's an evolutionary process going on here too. 10 years ago I was asking for involvement in the Webmania segment, inviting people to make video contributions, and got really nothing. But now, if I asked again, I'm sure I would get lots, because the technology is involved, as Tim said. As long as you make it easy, and kids are, 7-year-olds are adept at the internet now. So there is an evolutionary process going on here too.